A developing story right now about who can or cannot pray before Phoenix City Council meetings. We've been telling you how a Satanist prayer is planned for February. ABC 15's Raquel Cervantes is live at the Phoenix City Council chambers. And Raquel, there's an effort to stop this.
Kim, there isn't. A vote will happen here on Wednesday. Some city council members are calling this idea just a horrible plan. So they're trying to get this emergency ordinance passed that would stop this Satanist prayer. But let's explain what's planned. This group, a Satanist group out of Tucson, has requested to give the invocation before a meeting next month. That request has been granted. Under the current protocol, a person just simply requests to deliver the prayer. So a few city council members want to make a rule change. It would require this person to be a community member, and a council member would have to select the person. The mayor and another city council member have said that the Satanist group has a right to speak. Council member Sal DeCiccio says he believes the emergency rule will essentially stop the Satanist group from delivering the prayer.
I think it's bad for the city of Phoenix. It's a distraction. It makes a mockery of everything. And if the mayor and others want them to come and speak, they ought to put their name behind it.
And a member of the Satanist group has said he doesn't worship the devil. He says his religion is a symbol of rebellion. So this vote will happen here on Wednesday. The council member tells us that they need 7 votes to get this ordinance passed. So Kim, we'll be following up on this one.
Keep us updated on this. Raquel, thank you.
This one's sure to get you talking. A group of Satanists set to give the opening prayer at a Phoenix City Council meeting, and that is not sitting right with everyone. ABC 15's Noelani Graff live at City Hall tonight, getting the story from both sides here. No, hey, what'd you learn?
So, Stephanie, if you are in those council chambers next month, you're not going to hear from a reverend or a priest. Instead, it'll be a Satanic Templar member who starts off the meeting. The group says this is about freedom of religion. One city councilman says this is about showboating.
Yes, the city council members.
For city councilors, these chambers are hallowed ground where city laws are made. So at every meeting, they take a moment to say a prayer.
We're going to begin today's meeting with an invocation.
But the devil's in the details, as they say. At least he will be next month when Satanists will give the opening remarks.
And if you can, please stand for the invocation.
Instead of bowing their heads, some are raising an eyebrow at the idea. Councilman Sal DeCiccio raising the red flag on Twitter.
Well, I think it's just stupid sometimes to be politically correct, and this one fits that category.
DeCiccio says the city is trying too hard to be all-inclusive. He believes the Satanists are just trying to make a scene.
I think it's just a dumb idea. We do not legally have to do this.
Practicing member and legal representative Stu DeHaan says that's not true. While they organize on Facebook instead of a temple, they are still a recognized religion.
Just have a message that reason should come above all things, and all decisions should be made from an agnostic standpoint.
As far as a scene, he says don't expect any cloaked circle or sacrifice. You'll likely see this woman, Michelle Short, make a statement.
We're not here to be offensive. We're just here to participate.
So the city says, per the Supreme Court, it cannot dictate religious viewpoints or the content of a prayer. The Satanic Temple is based in Tucson, but they say opening prayer isn't part of the routine down there, so that's why they're coming to participate in Phoenix. And Stephanie, originally they only planned to bring a small handful of people. Now they're not sure how many will show up with this kind of attention.
Yeah, a lot of people already speaking out about this one. And let us know what you think on Facebook and Twitter. No, hey, thank you.
City leaders in Phoenix are trying to prevent a Satanist group out of Tucson from reading a prayer at a council meeting.
The Satanic Temple was granted a request to read an invocation. Now 4 councilors are behind an effort to change rules that could block the group. 9 News Side's Whitney Clark spoke to a member of the temple who explains why he is not backing down.
Stu DeHaan thinks the Satanic Temple is misunderstood. While he doesn't believe in a god, he doesn't worship the devil. Satan, a metaphor of rebellion.
We don't believe that there's a red guy with horns underground. I mean, we think that's not our thing. That's mythological. That's superstitious. That's exactly what we stray against.
That's the message DeHaan wants to bring to the state capitol. The city of Phoenix allows groups to request to read prayers at council meetings. The Satanic group was approved for the February 17th meeting, but that soon may change. On Wednesday, the council will consider an emergency clause that would require council members or the mayor to invite someone to deliver the prayer. DeHaan, a Tucson-based defense attorney, doesn't think government officials should be allowed to pick and choose which religions they find acceptable, calling it a violation of the First Amendment.
They're absolutely and blatantly discriminating against us, and it is unbelievable that they're so obvious about it, that they're actually publicly stating we're discriminating against the religious minority. It's unbelievable that they're doing that.
Councilmember Sal DeCiccio has been vocal about the issue on Twitter, saying that allowing the prayer is a dumb idea and it wasn't about diversity but stupidity.
I think it's bad for the city of Phoenix. It's a distraction. It makes a mockery of everything. And if the mayor and others want them to come and speak, they ought to put their name behind it.
Meanwhile, a local attorney tells us legally things can get tricky when you mix religion and government.
Once you start letting religion into the government process, such as an invocation at the start of a council meeting, then the First Amendment says you have to let everybody in.
Let's see, Monica Dennington, followed by Brent Kleiman, followed by Wes Harris.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I wanted to say thank you to Representative Townsend, who so beautifully articulated our need to speak. And that is what this great nation is about, not silencing different ideas. And as the representative said, even atheists have given prayers in their gatherings, and nobody has had to have be offended or have a riot. So that's really not the issue. What I want to bring up today is the fact that the Satanic Temple, which is obviously the subject of this, brings up the need for this council to be able to use discretion in who is giving the invocation, and they illustrate it very well because they are a hate group, and specifically they are a misogynist group. If you look on the Facebook pages of Michelle Short and Stu DeHaan, which are the representatives that would like to pray over this council on February 17th, you will see images of Michelle Short in bondage, in nudity, in all kinds of positions that are not appropriate and that are degrading to another minority group, which is women and girls. We cannot stand by while a hate group who promotes violence against women stands up and gives your invocation. That is standing against the God of nature, which our forefathers pointed to. You know, in their wisdom, they knew that we would have varying ideas of who that God is, but we have a common morality. We have a common sense of what is decent. The founder, or the national spokesperson for the Satanic Temple, recently had arrest warrants issued from Meridian, Mississippi, because he and the Satanic Temple did a desecration of the gravesite of Fred Phelps' mother. He got the idea from Westboro Baptist. So following in the footsteps of hate, they decided to take revenge by desecrating that gravesite. One of the actions that was taken is that this leader, who is threatening to sue the city, he laid his genitalia on the gravesite and that on the gravestone. Now, these are the people that are wanting to pray.
Each, and we've gone well over the 2 minutes, so I
So
apologize.
all I want to say is thank you for having a common sense of decency, for standing up for that, and understanding that when you stand against hate groups, when you stand against groups that promote violence against women and girls, you are standing for the God of nature. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mayor, there are a couple of us who would like to ask.
Monica, if you can stay up for a second.
Do you have a question? Please go ahead.
Just so I want to make sure that you understand what's the motion on the table and what you're going to be told, okay? Which I'm going to foreshadow this because this is what I do here. I mean, I expected this to occur last week when I was predicting that the city of Phoenix was going to move toward banning of all prayer. That's what this discussion is. This is what that Satanist group wants. When you read that, their bio in there, their main goal was to do what?
Their main goal is to silence any expression, any religious expression in public life, and they do that by creating an impossible choice, which is that we either cannot express ourselves in our spirituality and share those ideas with one another in public, or we have to accept the most extreme, blasphemous, and obscene, according to Arizona law, obscene expressions right next to all of our expressions of faith.
So just to be clear, though, too, from your reading of that, and I appreciate the fact that you actually read it, because I don't know how many people do, when they read that, they will get the same impression that you got out of this, out of that satanic group. And I do agree with you that it is a cult. It's not a real religion. It just isn't. But their main goal, and I want to drive this home, is to silence the other side. And that's done through a moment of prayer, or it's done through a banning. Basically, a moment of prayer, a moment of silence is basically a banning of prayer. I just want to make sure people understand that that's what this discussion is. It's to agree to the satanic goal to ban prayer.
Exactly. And to silence women and to promote violence against women. By the way, Michelle Short, who would be presiding, she has a picture on her website of herself beheading another woman. It's bloody, there are gashes, and in the light of the current situation with ISIS and everything else, it's not only distasteful and violent, it could considered to be by a woman like me to be terrorism.
Mayor.
Councilor Nowakowski has a question.
You said that this was a hate group, and you gave some examples. Do you have any other examples?
Yes, I do. There is a podcast with Lucian Greaves is the pseudonym of the national spokesman. His real name is Doug Messner, or one of them, Doug Messner. In that, I have it here. Among other things, he uses racial slurs. He uses slurs against Jews. He uses slurs against gays. And he talks about various ways that are horribly lewd and obscene to use whores. The host in that podcast is talking about a rape book, which he's put together, which is not anything that's, it is as offensive as it sounds. And he's laughing also, along with the host, as they start out the podcast by saying, on 9/11, we would like everyone to know that we're praying for the victims of 9/11. And then they laugh in mockery, and then they say, we don't care about 9/11. We couldn't care less how many buildings burn. We don't care how many people die. And then Doug Messner pipes up and says, as long as it's a lot.
Right, any additional questions, Councilman Nowakowski? Councilman DeCiccio, please.
One last one, too, just so that you know and you see how this thing is going to be set. You're going to be told that if we ban prayer here at the City of Phoenix, this issue will go away. Well, of course it will, because that's what the Satanists want, correct?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
New developments tonight. The Phoenix City Council is reconsidering their invitation to let the Satanic Temple perform the opening invocation at an upcoming City Council meeting. 4 members of the council moved late tonight to block the group. The current system allows groups to request a day to attend, but the council now wants to change that to a rotating system of pre-approved speakers. A U.S. Supreme Court ruling 2 years ago requires government bodies that have prayers before meetings to allow all types of religions.
To allow God in the building, you have to allow the devil in the building.
The biggest misconception is that we're devil worshippers, which is ridiculous to us. We actually don't believe any of this stuff exists.
Earlier this week, the council convened in a closed-door session to discuss legal options for turning the Satanists down, but ultimately they said the Supreme Court case tied their hands. The Satanic Temple will issue a statement tonight to 12 News saying this for no other purpose than a blatant attempt for discrimination. The council is ignorant and understands very little about their authority. If they do block us, we will consider legal options from there.
A controversial vote tonight in Phoenix. The City Council will not allow a satanic prayer at an upcoming meeting. Instead, there will be a moment of silent prayer. Joe Dana from our sister station in Phoenix was there for tonight's heated debate. It's a story that's new at 10.
Look, every city council member here tonight expressed their disagreement with Satanism, but they say they had a dilemma. Rewrite prayer practices to prevent a Satanist from praying here on the 17th, while also making the city vulnerable to a lawsuit, or take away public prayers altogether and avoid lawsuits. Preventing a Satanist's prayer a reason to celebrate for some members of mainstream religions.
It's a victory on our city.
But for others, the vote a defeat.
That's what this whole thing is about, really, political correctness. And you know what? Trying to take God out of everything.
It was an all-or-nothing approach. In the end, the council voting for nothing, led by Mayor Greg Stanton.
Not even 2 years ago, the justices on the Supreme Court, including the conservative justices Roberts and Alito, stated clearly what the Constitution demands of cities like ours, that when it comes to prayer, we can't discriminate against minority or unpopular faith.
Beginning tomorrow, no prayers will be allowed to open city council meetings. Instead, moments of silent prayer only. Council members relying largely on advice from the city's attorney. Councilman Sal DeCiccio, the most vocal opponent of the measure.
Because I want to give you hope. I want you to walk out of here knowing that this is not going to stop tonight if we lose this vote.
But several council members had harsh words towards DeCiccio, who suggested that supporting a moment of silence was to advocate for Satanists.
And when my colleagues attack us and my faith, that's very personal.
That was Joe Dana reporting. The councilwoman who sponsored the moment of silent prayer rule said she didn't want the city paying out $500,000 in legal fees and lawsuits when there are more important issues to deal with.
Little audience participation is needed. How many people actually have a dollar bill or a piece of money in their wallet or their pocket? I do believe it says, "In God we trust."
That Satan comes to steal, to kill, and to destroy.
But there's also Satan, our common enemy, who wants to destroy us.
Shut down their agenda, which is to bring death and destruction over Phoenix.
Are we invoking the curses of the deity spoken of, that they serve as Satan?
No, we may look different, not even that different. We got tattoos, we wear black. It's not dramatic. The Satanic Temple is a non-theistic religion that largely encompasses Enlightenment values such as logic, reason, nature, and has humanistic values that transcend laws, that transcend moralistic ideas that we have. We challenge the concepts of good and evil. We don't believe in a literal Satan. The deity, so to speak, that we use as our metaphor is more of a literary type based on a 1600s version by Milton, by some of the Romantics in France and England, where Satan was actually the protagonist who was the ultimate rebel against tyranny, who rebelled up to and against God himself.
Lucifer, before the fall, is presented as this noble character who's fighting against a tyrannical God. He who gave knowledge to Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. Yeah, it's all mythology. None of it's supposed to be taken literal. So, like, we don't see Satan as the bad guy.
There's kind of a romantic imagery of the Lucifer, which is more of the angelic, the bringer of light. And then there's the more beastly, the adversary. It's the goats.
This is what kind of got my gears grinding. You know, this was 2001, so, you know, we still had dial-up, and, you know, I just searched for Satanism, and
wow, this is what I've always been, but I never had a word. I never had something to describe it.
I mean, immediately, you know, they often call Satanism a coming home religion. You don't realize it exists, and then you find it, and you're like, oh, this has been me all along. I just didn't know it had a name. I didn't know it was something that other people adhere to. Like, oh, other people think like me?
The nation that forgets God shall be turned into hell.
When you're part of a religious organization and someone tells you everyone can participate in this public forum, you can have your imagery, you can have your 2-minute speeches or your prayers, and then you come in and you say, hey, I want to give a 2-minute speech to you. I'm a taxpayer. I live in this community. I have the same rights. And they're like, no, you're weird. That's what we face, essentially. And that's the end of the analysis.
Without us having said anything at all, you're already calling fire and brimstone and curses.
You know, we get death threats. We had hate mail. for days and weeks because we asked to give a 2-minute prayer about logic and reason for the Phoenix City Council.
The City Council will not allow a satanic prayer at an upcoming meeting. Instead, there will be a moment of silent prayer.
The invocation campaign in Phoenix, where we were going to give a 2-minute satanic invocation before the Phoenix City Council, and instead of letting Michelle do it, since they thought she was going to call down demons and fire from the sky, they got rid of the entire program. I think when it comes down to it, Satanism is what we've found to be our ultimate form of expression, our ultimate way to make a stand and be like, I am who I am. I should not be guilty about that as long as I'm not hurting anybody. You kind of find yourself and you kind of find your community, and a community that you may not have found in any other way.
Well, I can read to you the prayer that we had scheduled to read. It goes as follows. Let us stand now, unbowed and unfettered by arcane doctrines born of fearful minds in darkened times. Let us embrace the Luciferian impulse to eat of the tree of knowledge and dissipate our blissful and comforting delusions of old. Let us demand that individuals be judged for their concrete actions, not their fealty to arbitrary social norms and illusory categorizations. Let us reason our solutions with agnosticism in all things, holding fast only to that which is demonstrably true. Let us stand firm against any and all arbitrary authority that threatens the personal sovereignty of one or all. That which will not bend must break, and that which can be destroyed by truth should never be spared its demise. It is done. Hail Satan.
Thank you. No more prayers at Phoenix City Council meetings. The decades-long tradition replaced with a moment of silence after Tucson-based Satanic group requested to read the invocation.
Now the group will get the chance to speak in Tucson after 3 hours of emotional debate and discussion. The Phoenix Council decided to do away with prayers altogether. As KGUN 9 on Your Side's Whitney Clark explains, Tucson leaders say they welcome all religions, including the Satanic group.
The city of Tucson has a list of about 60 ministers and individuals who've expressed interest in giving the invocation at council meetings.
We ask that you would grant us wisdom as this council makes decisions that will impact present generations and those to come.
It often takes less than a minute and is followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. City leaders say they don't discriminate against any religious viewpoints. They've had Christian groups, a Wiccan, and now the Satanic Temple has been added to the list. Stu DeHaan, a criminal defense attorney in town, had requested an invocation at a Phoenix council meeting, but in a 5-4 vote last night, the council voted to ban all prayers. Critics called the Satanic group a cult, saying that out-of-towners shouldn't dictate the city's rules. Councilman Sal DeCiccio was the first to raise red flags about the group, disappointed with the final decision, and he's not alone.
They changed a tradition that's been established for over 40 or 50 years at the city of Phoenix overnight and done behind closed doors.
They want to get rid of God. Does that mean they want to get rid of our money too? It's printed on all our money. God bless America. Are we going to now stop saying that because it's not politically correct anymore?
Earlier this week, DeHaan spoke to 9 on Your Side about his religion. While he doesn't worship the devil, he doesn't believe in a God, Satan, a metaphor of rebellion.
We don't believe that there's a red guy with horns underground. I mean, we think that's not our thing. That's mythological, that's superstitious. That's exactly what we stray against.
DeHaan says he was satisfied with the outcome of the Phoenix meeting because at least now everyone will be treated equally. He says he believes they did this so they could block the group while avoiding a lawsuit. There is no official date as to when the group will read an invocation at the Tucson meeting. The city rotates through the list based on who's available. From the newsroom, Whitney Clark, KGUN 9 on Your Side.
Whitney, thank you.
Just into the ABC 15 Live Desk, Scottsdale saying okay to Satanists. A city spokesperson says a group called the Satanic Temple asked yesterday to give an invocation at a council meeting. Mayor said, okay, this is going to happen now on April 5th. We're working to see if this is the same group that's been trying to lead an opening prayer at the Phoenix City Council for some time now.
Dumped again, another setback for that Satanist group trying to lead the opening prayer at city council meetings. First, Phoenix dropped them from their schedule. Now Scottsdale's doing the same. And new at 10, the group tells us they were completely blindsided by this latest decision, and a lawsuit is not off the table.
What they seem to have done is come up with an arbitrary standard that was not present before, because we had been scheduled, like any other group would have been scheduled, and then as the months go by, they decided to come up with something to discriminate against us.
Scottsdale officials tell ABC 15, quote, the city is not going to deviate from its long-standing practice of having the invocation given only by representatives from institutions that have a substantial connection to the Scottsdale community.
The Tucson-based Satanic Temple of Arizona says they're suing the city of Scottsdale for violating their First Amendment rights.
News 4 Tucson's Nick Van Zandt found out prayer and public meetings are at the center of this lawsuit. It's new at 10.
It says that all good things come from your hand, Lord.
The city of Scottsdale starts nearly every city council meeting with a prayer invocation.
We pray in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
But when members of the Satanic Temple of Arizona asked to lead that invocation, they were told no.
It's a fundamental bedrock constitutional right to have free exercise of religion any way we see fit, and to not be able to establish a religion by endorsing one over the other.
Stu DeHaan is the attorney behind the claim. He says that back in 2016, the temple asked and was given permission to lead a prayer at an upcoming city council meeting. Then, according to the claim, city council members got involved and the temple was denied permission to speak, with some Scottsdale council members saying the temple's request was, quote, taking equality too far, and that the council should be guided by God alone.
We're not going away. We are members of the community, and we will ask to be part of these public forums.
In response, Scottsdale city officials say the temple was turned away not because of religion, but because they didn't have ties to the Scottsdale community. DeHaan says community ties weren't part of the application process.
So our belief is that it was made up to discriminate against us.
Now, in the claim, the temple is not asking for monetary damages. They say they want equal opportunity to speak and equal treatment regardless of religion. For News 4 Tucson, I'm Nick Van